Hi, this is Leah. Today I'd like to talk about anger. Seems to me it's quite a tricky subject in our society and it's got a bit of a bad name. People, I find, get stuck between two pretty difficult choices. They either feel they need to express their anger and not hide it, and perhaps that ends up with speaking harshly or even sometimes with physical violence against the person they blame for their anger. Or they might feel that the only thing to do is to not show it and repress it. And either of these choices don't really work, do they? So, if we speak violently or act violently against another person, that's likely to cause a lot of trouble out there. If we repress our anger, then that's going to cause a lot of trouble inside of us. So we feel quite stuck with what to do with our anger. And I often see that children are told that their anger is not all right. And we've got some practices like putting children on the naughty step. And that doesn't really work because they learn that their anger or their tantrums are not right. And it's actually not true. They're expressing a natural emotion that all of us go through, and what they need is help to express it safely, which takes us to the most helpful answers to what to do with our anger, which is to express it safely, not directed at the person who we've blamed or the situation we've blamed, but to work with getting the force of our anger out. That raw energy of anger needs to be expressed safely. And then once that's gone, once the force of that energy is gone, then we're able to really think a bit more clearly and decide whether or not we want to actually tell the person that we blamed anything or nothing at all. What we also find if we go deeply into anger, what is that the person who we might have blamed or the situation that we've blamed for our anger isn't actually responsible. Normally, we are carrying a lot of anger in us, and people who have had traumatic childhoods will find they've got a lot of anger held inside of them. And what happens with events outside of us or people's behaviour is that they trigger our anger. They might also add to it. But if the anger that we express seems disproportionate to what we seem to be angry about, we know that there's anger inside of us that's been stored up from the past and usually right back into our childhood. Anger is a reaction, so that we are responsible for our anger, and it's not actually accurate to say such and such makes me angry or this person made me angry. We need to work, I think, on our language and our understanding so that we say, when this happened, I judged it or I didn't like it, and the result was that I felt very angry. And when we understand it that way, we can separate the two activities, the event or the person's actions, and how we feel, because it's about us. And whatever happens out there, we actually have the freedom to respond in a constructive way. And if we don't blame anybody else or any event for what we feel, then we're actually empowered too. If you or an event are responsible for my anger, then I'm a victim of that behaviour, that event, and disempowered by it. If I can separate it and say, when that happened or when that person spoke that way or did that action, the result was that I became angry, but I understand that I actually have a choice in the way I deal with things. There's power there, there's possibilities. I'm free to learn how to behave differently. I'm free to look at my anger and deal with it if I can. So lots of hopeful ways of looking at this. I see really 4 stages. And the first stage with dealing with our anger is saying there's a naked energy, there's a raw emotion here that's you can actually almost take out of the thoughts and the words that go with it. And what I do in my life counselling work is if somebody's feeling very angry, I ask them to express that anger within the session by perhaps something like, imagining that the person they're angry with is on a cushion on a chair, and really expressing that anger. And what's brilliant about this is it's safe, isn't it? The person exists in your head, not the real person. And anger is quite a dark energy. It's has often this violent feeling in it. It has a need to cut down, to destroy, to break, to damage, and we don't really want to be bringing that out towards other people. So within a therapeutic environment, it's actually very helpful and powerful to really express anger and often be quite unpleasant with it because it's safe within that therapeutic session. And then we can really get rid of that bile within us. And in a safe way, the person that we think we're angry with doesn't know anything about it, doesn't feel anything. All we're doing is saying, I need to get rid of this nastiness from within me. And then once that's done, usually what happens is the person will feel very relieved and they will begin to see things differently. What can come out of this is an understanding perhaps of what the other person felt, and an understanding in ourselves of the fact that we probably have been carrying a lot of anger that's almost been waiting for something to happen that we can let it be triggered by, because it needs to come out. So lots of understanding comes out of expressing that raw anger. And often in a therapy session, I might get people everybody's heard of, even if they haven't done it, of bashing cushions and maybe breaking something that is okay to break, or being aggressive with a nice noisy bat or something. It's a very safe way to release the force of our naked anger. Anyway, so having done that, we are calmer, more peaceful. We've got rid of that naked energy, and then we can begin to see things differently. It also takes us to a place where we actually might be able to forgive the person or event that we felt we were angry with. We take responsibility for our reaction. We decide to forgive. And forgiveness, in the way I do it, is about us releasing our grievances. It's rational self-interest. If we're spending our lives feeling angry with somebody, carrying a grievance around, that really messes up our lives. It's very hard to feel peaceful or flowing or happy with ourselves, because the anger bubbles on, and the grievance that runs in our minds over and over really affects every aspect of our lives. So forgiveness is fantastic because it clears away the grievance that you carry. And I know people find it very hard sometimes because they feel, yes, that person did do that. That event did happen. It wasn't fair. It wasn't right. And is forgiveness condoning? And in this way, it isn't. Your forgiveness is really about saying, I'm decided to let go of this because it's messing up my life. It's messing up my head. I don't want to waste my time and energy on grievances when I could be clear of it, and I could be being creative and kind and loving and generous and fun instead in my life. So I will forgive for me. The person you have to forgive could be dead or living in Australia and have no contact with them or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's what's going on in your head that counts. So we can just say to ourselves, I do not want to carry grievances. I don't want this pain and suffering that causes me, so I'm going to let go. And it's a very powerful, pragmatic and empowering thing to do. And then after that, after we've forgiven, if we then rest in that kind of peaceful place that comes of it, we might become clearer about if there's anything else we need to do. Sometimes, even when you're forgiven, there's a clarity around you really do feel you want to say something, from a calm and peaceful, reasonable place. Or you might want to make some kind of gesture towards rekindling a friendship or a relationship. You don't really know. You can't think straight when you're in the grip of anger and grievance against somebody. So when that's all gone, you can actually think about things in a more reasonable and balanced way. It might be that once you've gone through those stages that I talk about, you forget the whole thing altogether. You don't do anything at all. But you don't know. You don't know what the best thing is to do until you've actually let go of the anger that you're carrying. And I'm going to tell you a little story about what happened to me, and perhaps partly about how I understand this, about getting rid of the force of the anger first. And it was many years ago. I've been doing this work for a long time, but many years ago, I went off for a weekend to run a residential course or whatever it was, can't remember now, but I know it was a residential. And when I left my house, I'd had a really busy week and everything seemed to be a total mess. And I arranged for my cleaner to come in and spend the day, one or other of the 2 days, a Saturday or Sunday, cleaning the house and getting everything sorted out and sorting out the washing up and the washing and doing everything for me, which was fabulous. And I was really looking forward to coming home to a nice clean house. Anyway, so I'd had a very strong emotional weekend. In those days, it was a long time ago, I wasn't so good at not letting it in. And I did feel very burdened, I think, with the amount of pain that had been expressed over that weekend. But as I opened the door, I thought, oh, just thank goodness I'm coming home to a nice clean house. Well, actually, I didn't. For some reason, my cleaner hadn't turned up and the house looked just as awful as it did when I left. And I was so angry, just completely wildly angry. And I understood what I was saying earlier in this video, that I was carrying a lot of anger. If I hadn't got anger rattling around inside of me, I might have been mildly irritated and just gone with it. But I was really, really angry. And I could just feel it in my body, Anger leaves our bodies. This is interesting, I think. It leaves our bodies through our eyes, so when people are really angry, they've got really staring eyes, through our arms and hands. So that's why people punch when they're angry, and through our legs and our feet. People stamp and kick. So that's the body releasing its anger. So I could feel that. I could feel those staring eyes, and I was holding onto my fists. And I went into the dining room, and I could feel myself looking for something that I express it with. And I got hold of an old chair. I don't know if it was that old. And I picked it up by the back and I whacked it on the floor. And I think I shouted. And a bit of it broke. And I thought, I don't know if I thought, I just felt. And it was good. It was a good feeling, and that crack, So I picked up the back of the chair and I whacked it a few more times, and bits of it kept breaking. And it was my chair, my house, and I felt perfectly free to break up a chair if I wanted to. And I continued for a bit, and at one point it didn't feel like it was making enough noise. And I had a brick-built fireplace, so I sort of whacked it against the fireplace, and it made lots of nice noise and broke into a few more bits. And eventually I began to feel better. Yeah, I've done that. Then I burst into tears, cried my eyes out, and then I picked up all the bits of chair and put it in a bag and, and set it to one side so I could light the fire with it. And I felt fabulous. It was all gone. So all the anger that I'd stored was gone, all the tears that were stored as well. This is a whole other video. They were gone too. And I felt fantastic. and I set to, cleaned the house, made some dinner, and I was a really happy bunny. And I feel like that was a really important time for me, because I knew a lot of theory about anger, but I experienced it for myself, that it has a force, it is a raw energy, and it wants to hurt and destroy. But you can do that quite safely without hurting anybody. And as far as my cleaner was concerned, the following day I had a call from her and she apologised. And I said it was absolutely fine, that I understood, which I did by then. It was okay, things happen in people's lives, and all was well. So I think, maybe think about that. You might have something equivalent in your life that you can you can break up if you want to. I once bashed up one of those what they call orange boxes, with that finer wood that you put vegetables in, and I whacked one of those to bits once with a stick. That was amazingly good fun too. So you can see it quite lightly, that there's lots you can do. Now, if you don't want to be quite as strong as that, and you don't have any handy chairs to break up, another good way of dealing with your anger is actually to write. And so you can write a letter, not to send, you can write a letter to the person or people or event or whatever that you feel really angry about, and really express it and really have a good old rant, and then read it through afterwards, realize what you've expressed, what you felt, and you can burn it or tear it up and chuck it away, and just feel like you're done with that. You wash your hands of it, and you're clean inside, and you can start again, and you can see things differently. It's quite miraculous. And one of the things I do is I'm a teacher of A Course in Miracles, and within that we're taught that a miracle is a fundamental change in perception. So we just learn to see things differently. So if you can express your anger if you need to, and forgive, you get to a place of new understanding. You see things differently, and that's really miraculous. So I'd like to leave it on that note, and just remind you, if you'd like to have half an hour with me just to explore perhaps your issues of anger or any other issues you have at all, I'm happy to do that free of charge, and to see if I can support you in some way. Bye bye.